what we're going to do right now is turn your head into a guitar encyclopedia so that you can find and play any chord, no matter what it is. There is one diagram you have to memorize, but it is very powerful and definitely worth the time and will save you endless hours of memorization. So let's get to it. First thing first, the difference between a black dot diagram and and this is that I know where every note is in that position. So, and I know who they are. So for example, that's a root, that's a third, that's a fifth. Most people will just learn the 3 places to put your finger and then be done with it. But the trick is to really understand that there are these auxiliary notes floating around you, like a third down there, a fifth down there. There's a root, third, fifth, root, third, fifth. So rather than 3 notes, now I got to know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I got to learn 5 more things, especially open strings. You can't forget about those. And but the payoff is so worth it. So for example, here I got my chord, and one of the coolest things you can do with your chord progressions is inversions, and that means putting a different note than the root on the bottom. So right now you can see my lowest note is a C, or the root. That's the normal way to play a chord. But if I pluck the low E string, now I've inverted the chord. And the bass is something you're really sensitive to, that people can really hear. There's the fifth on the bass. That's a nice chord. So that example I played earlier of the Casino song uses that inversion. So, and the auxiliary note here, the extra little fifth. And that note leads the ear up to the next chord, which is the F. That's what's so nice about it. So, yeah, so inversions, I would say, is the number one thing that people notice. The next, so your lowest note. The next thing is the note on the top. So, for example, I can play and stop playing there. Whoops. Or here on the top E, or, and that can change the sound of the chord a lot too. For right, so that would have been too long to just do the same chord. So by putting in those little variations, by changing the top note, it gives a lot more interest, right? Same thing with Dust in the Wind. It actually just takes this root and moves it around. So just get boring. So we got inversions, changing the bottom, changing the top note, which some people call changing the voicing of it. Now here's the real payoff. If I know where those notes are, they are my landmarks to use something like this. Those are the notes, and you have to kind of make a connection between a single string and then stacked strings on the guitar. So I'll show you what I mean by that. If I fill in the whole fretboard and I turn off everything but, this string, you can see the spacing there. I got a root, I got, 3 frets, and then I got the third, I got 2 frets, then I got the fifth, and then I got 4 frets, and I have the root. So let's try the A string. There it is. You can see that pattern, right? There it is there. There it is on the G string. So you have that pattern on every string, but we don't think like that on guitar. We tend to think more like this, where we only have a little slice that your hand can reach. That makes actually finding stuff in between kind of complicated because it's not linear. So when you know your chord forms, you know the full chord form, and then you know who is who, now we can do stuff like finding every other possible note in between. So someone says to you, let's play a sus4 chord. It's pretty easy to figure out that a 4 would be above the third. So for example, here's the third. Above would be higher, adding 1 fret to it. So you'd expect to find the fourth directly above the third. So here I go. Now I'm going to play a sus4 chord by not playing the third, playing the fourth instead. Sus4. Just back normal. So there's that. I mean, if I know where my third is, it's real easy to find the fourth. Back to major. Let's say I wanted to put the sharp 4 in, right? I know it would be 2 frets above the third. So if I play this chord now, there's a sharp 4. Nice sound. So let's take a look at everything here. So the first fret above the root, there's the flat second, right? On the 5th fret would be the second, but we're going to use the open string, the open D. There would be the flat third, right there. There's the third. So for example, I want to play a minor chord. All I have to do is lower the third by 1. So this third and this third, they're open strings. I can't lower an open string, so they will disappear, and you'll see this note go down. Let's say I wanted to play a minor chord. All I would have to do is take that third, lower it by 1, and there's a minor chord. Okay, so let's try some more stuff here. So between a root and the third, I have a second. And between the third and the 5th, I have a 4th. Now the long stretch in between a 5th and a root, I have a 6s and 7s. So for example, here's my root, right? There's my second, there's my third, there's my 4th. That is my 5th. So this will be the flat 6. And there's the 6th. There's the flat 7. So if someone says, play a major chord with a flat 7 or a dominant chord, I know it's 3 frets above a 5th. So if I have this 5th, then I go 1, 2, 3, there's the flat 7. I could just play it, in this kind of shape instead. Okay, now the tricky part comes, actually one more. Let's take a look at that top root here. Now 1 fret below the root is always the major 7th. Nice chord. So a major chord and a major 7. Now the tricky part comes when we go beyond this octave, because if I go here, yeah, it's kind of a flat second again, but we call it a compound interval because it's higher up, and it usually tells jazz players to put it up higher, because if it's too low on the guitar, it gets too crunchy. So when we look at everything, if root is the octave, which means 8, then the next one, the 2, is the same thing as a 9, right? So here's the root, there's the flat 2 or the flat 9. There's the 9th. There's the flat 3 or a sharp 9. So if I play a C sharp 9, it says flat 3 on the diagram there, but I have to go 1, 2, 3 frets above a root. Okay, so let's do something complicated. Let's try putting in a 13th. So I can see a 13th is 2 frets. Let's go back to a major chord. I want that 13th. It's 2 frets above a 5th, but the higher one, right? So not here. We want 2 frets above a 5th. So I'm going to play, triad there. There I got my C major with a 13th. How about a flat 13? Well, flat 13 would just be right there, right? It's not a great voicing for it, but you get the idea. So the trick is take a screenshot of that and memorize this diagram, because this is everything. Like, this is the full musical palette for intervals. And it's not that hard. And again, remember, if you have these points memorized, it's really easy to find. And I would definitely start with the sevenths. So be able to take your root back by 1 for a major 7, or down by 2 for, now I can't lower the open string, right? So this ends up coming down there. So there's a dominant 7. Those are the main things. And I can, maybe do that with a minor chord. I could find it here. Yeah. Right there. There's the minor chord, right? With the flat third. Now I can start putting in sevenths with this. So how about I put a minor chord with major 7? Do we have that? I think we do. Yeah, here we go. Boom. That's a spicy chord. Minor chord, major 7. How about a minor chord? Whoops, a minor chord with a minor 7. So there's the minor chord. Now the minor says it's going to be tricky to play in this form, so I'd have to play it something like this. Be like that. Remember, that flat 7 is 2 frets behind the root. So 1 is open, 2 ends up right there. I got my root, got my third, minor 7. And that's it. So again, it all comes down to being able to know where your landmark notes are, which are the majors. And then everything else is either, 1, 2, sometimes 3 frets away. But it's easy to find. Now, this was the C form. This is the C form shape. There's only 5. So for example, if I want to use the next one up, it's always C-A-G-E-D, caged, right? So the next form up would be the A form. Still playing a C chord, but now all the same stuff applies. So if I wanted to make this into a minor chord, all I'd have to do is take the third. I'm not going to mess with this one. I'm going to take this third and lower it by 1, right? There's my minor chord. How about doing that major 7 again? I need to lower the root, the octave there, by 1 fret. So got to lower him by 1. Major 7. How about a dominant 7 chord? I got to lower that root by 2 frets. Right. Maybe I should. Right? Or remember, we said it was 3 higher than this, so I could play up there too. How about sus9? So a sus9 chord, how am I going to do that? So that means instead of taking the third up to the 4th, I'm kind of taking the third down to the 2nd or the 9th. So that would mean there's my third, right there. And now I have to lower it by 2 to find the 9th. So 1, 2. So there is, sometimes it's called a C sus9, just like that. Now this is A form. So now with the A form, I can't just memorize that. I've got to know I got a third sitting right there. I got a 5th sitting right there. So C, A, G, there's 3 more forms to do. Let's just check it out quick. So after the A form, let's go back to the C form quick. But the highest note of that right there becomes the lowest note. Right? So one more time. The lowest note there. So C, A form. Now these three become the bar for my G form. Now, no one ever really plays this full thing like that, so you just kind of do that and just don't play the top string. So let's give it a test here on the G form. Let's try. Let's do that major 7 again. So again, it's taking the octave and moving it down by 1. So I should be able to play maybe like this fingering. You know, I'm skipping a couple strings, but I don't need to play the whole thing. You can even just do something like this. Because I got a root, I got a third, I got a fifth. I could have another root, but I want the 7th. So I got C form. And again, if I know the whole C form, the full thing, this actually becomes pretty easy. So C form, A form, G form. After G comes E, so where my third finger was, I put that. Right? And then this is a bit of a tricky one here. So here I am on E form. If you don't know these at all, then we're going to do a separate video for that. So I'm assuming most of you understand what these forms mean. And then the pinky will go, where the pinky is where the first finger goes for the D form. And the D form is where most people miss all the extra notes, like the 5th on the bottom or the 3rd. Because only when you know where everything is and you have all your landmarks can you start using, you know, this stuff. So let's go back to the E form. E form is really powerful for this kind of stuff. So let's check out a dominant 7 chord. Again, the root has to move back by 2, so I play my normal chord. And now I take this one, or I got 2 choices now. I'm going to start with this one. I move it back by 2. And all I have to do is just take my pinky off, and that moves that note down by 2. If I want to play the major 7, then this note has to move down just by 1. And that will look kind of a crazy fingering, but or if I wanted to, I could start at this root, got my 3rd, I got my 5th, got my root, move it down by 1. Boom, major 7. So to recap it all, it's all about learning the full form, not just kind of 3 black dots, but knowing now there's 8, and then knowing who is who, because those are your landmarks to find everything else. Because it can get kind of complicated when you look at all this. It's a lot of stuff, but remember, you know, if you have a 3rd, the 4th is 3, 4, 5. It's all in order, so it's pretty easy to find. The ones you're going to use the most are the 9ths, and once in a while the 13s, a lot of sus4s, and like I should say 7ths are the primary thing you're going to be using. So yeah, I hope that helps with your chord building. Any questions or any kind of exercises, let me know.